Things just took a major turn as a new report has revealed the shocking truth behind what Rangers ownership is planning to do with the future of this organization, with not just coaching, but management as a whole. And some of the details in this report will have Rangers fans absolutely fired up. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your New York Rangers, as once again, we head into what is probably going to be the craziest offseason of the last 30 years coming up here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It is free and you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And let's dive right into it. A new report suggested that the Rangers are going to be firing Peter Laviolette this week. It is going to be happening. Well, maybe not this week, but it's going to happen within the next week. So it could happen sometime early next week as well, once exit interviews and locker cleanout day are complete. But we have a new report that suggests that he might be the only one getting fired. But let's dive right into it. Teams around, and this is from Pierre LeBrun, and a couple other insiders have had the same report and sharing the same sentiment. Now, Peter Laviolette looks like he's going to be fired. Everyone is reporting that at this point. It looks like he's going to coach his last game as the Rangers head coach on Thursday. But Chris Drury is also expected to be, quote unquote, okay with ownership holding trust in the GM and president. So, by all accounts, Chris Drury will not be fired. He will stick around as president and GM of the team, and Peter Laviolette will be fired. Now, there are some new things to dive into here. And we're also going to get into Chris Drury's track record and why he should or shouldn't stay on as president and GM. And honestly, some of the details are pretty crazy. I completely forgot some of this stuff happened. But from Anthony LaRocco, Chris Drury being allowed to fire a third coach. Keep that in mind. Let's remember that when Chris Drury was hired, he got to fire one coach, then he got to fire Gerard Gallant, and then he got to hire all of these guys, Peter Laviolette, and now it looks like he's going to be firing Peter Laviolette. How many, bullets do you have left in the chamber as a president and GM? We will get into that. But why is he allowed to fire a third coach and hire a fourth coach in his tenure while he keeps his job is absolutely bonkers. He's a huge problem too. I don't understand this at all. Now, I do think Chris Drury in his time has made good moves for this team. I do truly believe that. At the same time, the way that he has treated players, that he has signed to contracts that he ends up, trading away, has been not good. It hasn't been great, not a great track record, and it seems like the team has not only turned on the coach, and I think that's a big reason why Alexis Lafreniere has had a terrible season, is because of the coaching and management as well. Chris Drury has to turn something around. I'm not saying that he needs to be fired, but something's got to give. So this is from Phil Kosher, who, says that he's been pro Drury for a while now. And honestly, if I was on either end, I have to say personally, and I know a lot of people aren't, and I see you guys in the comments, I wouldn't say I'm pro Drury, but I do think he's made some good moves. I don't think it's all bad with Chris Drury. I really don't. And we'll get into that in a second. But, he said that he's been pro Drury for a while now, but you have to be blind to be unable to connect the dots here. And this is kind of what I've been talking about. What happened with Trouba and Gaudreau last summer, and then what happened with Trouba when they finally traded him in December. What's happened with Chris Kreider. This is a man who played with so much passion before, and it looks like his soul has been snatched from him this season in his play. I know he's been dealing with an injury, but he just looks like the love for the game has left him. What happened with DeHaan just recently this past weekend? A bunch of other players. Jones as well. Zach Jones, what's happened with him? There are too many of these incidents happening to suggest none of this has anything to do with him. A lot of this has to do with Chris Drury. And if Drury does stay, splitting up the president of hockey ops and the GM role might be something that the Rangers need to look into. And again, this is not something that's going to happen. This is just speculation. Need to look into to reduce everything that's been happening with Chris Drury, right? To kind of reduce some of the ill will with some of the players and that, or getting him an AGM at the NHL level. And Phil Kosher, suggests Ryan Martin. Now, a lot of people have been suggesting, and I made a video about this the other day, Mark Messier for president of the New York Rangers. Now, would that be a good thing? I think Mark Messier cares and he wants the Rangers to succeed. But Mark Messier has never had a position like that. I don't know if he would be good in that position. Maybe you steer away from that. But one thing I wanted to focus in on in this video is this is an incredible Reddit thread that I found from 4 months ago, and it's from 4 months ago, and there's so much that's happened still in these 4 months. And this is a great Twitter Reddit thread, excuse me, if you want to go check it out. But if you want to understand why this team quit this year, look at Chris Drury, right? And I do think, again, I will say, I think he's made some good moves, but his relationship with the players on the team hasn't been great. And at the same time, and I said this in a previous video, a lot of these players, I believe, want to be here, like Panarin, like Zibanejad, a couple of these guys. And there's a whole part in this about Zibanejad. I'm not going to talk about it in this video because it gets pretty in-depth. Go check it out if you want, and it is very true. But his relationship with these players hasn't been good. But these guys want to be New York Rangers. But again, like I said in a previous video, they want to be New York Rangers under their terms and conditions, and it doesn't always work like that for you in the workplace. Now, this is pretty much obvious to the naked eye that, it's a veteran team and all of this. It's a great article. But if you look at some of their moves, and some of this started back as early as 2021, and it's trading, Buchnevich over to the St. Louis Blues in return for a prospect or a minor leaguer and a draft pick, which you don't know what to do. This organization doesn't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with draft picks. Maybe they know what to do with draft picks, but then once they become part of your organization, they have no idea how to develop you. They don't know what to do with minor leaguers or prospects, right? So that's just a bad trade because you got to recognize and see, what your team is. And they're just bad at developing prospects. And that's the thing that they have to put a lot of attention and detail to this summer as well, getting an actual player development staff together here. Let's make sure that some of the younger players who are being brought in can actually succeed at the NHL level. That's a big problem with this team. But anyway, that was the first one. There's a couple others. He signs Barclay Goodrow to that 6-year contract that he ended up moving last summer. There is a lot in here. I mean, do you guys remember the Ryan Reeves stuff? I mean, he basically had a feud with Ryan Reeves. Drury trades the popular locker room guy to Minnesota because how much he cost to the cap, even though he signed the contract in the first place. And then last summer, the whole thing that happened last summer with Jacob Trouba at the draft, Larry Brooks releasing that article, Trouba putting the Red Wings on his no trade list. That whole thing happened. Barclay Goodrow being put on waivers as well. Some of the guys in the locker room didn't like the way that all of that was happening. The fact that he tried to trade Trouba and it got shut down, and then Trouba had to basically put on a fake smile to come to training camp and knew that he was going to get traded either during the season or after this season. All of it is a mix of bad negativity. It's just a bad mix. Completely toxic this season. So, and again, one of the worst kept secret memos ever comes out, linking the teams interested in trading for Trouba and, of course, Chris Kreider earlier this season, if you remember, in November. That the team has been an absolute disaster. It's been an absolute mess since November, since that happened. It was leading to that point, and it was probably going to happen, but what happened in November when all of that was leaked just absolutely tipped everything over the edge. And again, what happened with, we know what happened with, of course, Jacob Trouba. And the team can fire another coach and allow Drury to hire his third different coach in 4 years, or they can get rid of the, he uses the word cancer here, but that is spreading throughout the entire team. Issue is, we all know Dolan won't make the right move. Now, listen, I do think that, like I said, he's made some good moves, Chris Drury. He brought in JT Miller. I thought that was a great trade. Listen, I love Filipino. I thought he was the best center on this team the entire season when he was playing with the Rangers. They traded him away in a trade. Again, he gets another concussion. It's looking like the Rangers made out okay in that trade, right? Obviously, you give up Victor Mancini. I thought very highly of Victor Mancini, but you get a really good player in JT Miller. I thought that was a good move. He's made some good moves throughout, his time as a GM, but it's the relationship thing with the players. The players don't want to play for Chris Drury anymore, and they certainly do not want to play for Peter Laviolette. So this is from Mike Rupt as well on the NHL Network. I'll be honest, I don't think that they have the right leaders inside that room right now. And they don't have a captain. They need some alphas. That's why I think JT Miller was such a huge ad for them, to get a guy in there like that. JT Miller is the type of guy who is going to tell you and keep you accountable. He's going to be the next captain of this team. It's him or Trocheck. I think it's going to be him. And he's the guy who's going to hold you accountable on the bench, and he's going to lead by example. This guy has the most multi-point games in the NHL since being traded to the Rangers. He's doing this on a team that was actively in a tailspin. It's pretty impressive. I expect him to have a huge season next year, and he's probably going to be named the captain. I think it was a great move. I think that's a good thing, and you're adding some leadership qualities to the room. That being said, you have to fix your relationship with all the players. I don't know. I don't know if it's soured to the point that it's, you can't salvage it. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens this summer. It sounds like Drury won't be on the way out. It sounds like they've already evaluated that, and it looks like he will be firing again his third coach in his tenure and this little era here that we have in New York. And it also looks like, go check out another video I did yesterday. It also looks like that Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider, this is it for them. They're going to be playing their last game as New York Rangers on Thursday. And you must be, telling yourself, they both have no movement clauses. How is that going to happen? Drury's done it before, and then again, it might sour the room. But the room is getting a little bit younger. Maybe you move into next year. Some of the younger guys have a bigger opportunity. You have a new coach in there. Things might improve. I could see a world where things will improve next year. Moving out 2 players, having a bunch of younger players and a new coach in there, I could see things improving. Because again, some of the older guys, it's a two-way street, right? Drury, yes, he should have a better relationship with his players. Although sometimes you got to be cutthroat in sports as well as a GM, right? He should have a little bit of a better relationship with his players, not make it an absolute miserable place to play. But at the same time, the players have to recognize it is a business. Players are going to get traded sometimes. Sometimes things are going to be not go your way, right? And I know you want to be New York Rangers, but you got to play through that stuff sometimes. So it is a two-way street, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with, Chris Drury and what James Dolan is planning to do this offseason. And this has got to be the last coach at this point. Chris Drury is done after this. It just has to happen. And I do see a world where the team does improve next season. But let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. It was a loaded episode today. There's a lot going on with the Rangers, and they play their final game of the season. And again, I want to say at the end of an episode, Sam Rosen, enjoy his last game calling a game for the New York Rangers. Enjoy it. It's the last game of the season. And then after that, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of drama, fireworks at Locker Cleanout Day, and we'll be here to cover it all. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything happening with the New York Rangers.